The lawyer slid the folder across the polished desk. My son Daniel leaned back, smirking, and whispered, "Don't dream of millions. You belong in the garage." His words hit me like a hammer. The folder smelled faintly of ink and dust, proof that something final waited inside. I looked straight at him, my heart pounding in my chest. He never once lifted his eyes from his phone, fingers tapping as if my life meant nothing. Even the lawyer avoided my gaze, shuffling papers nervously. The first page of the will was read aloud. My wife's name, my son's name, every relative listed, except mine. I sat there invisible, my throat burning with shame. Daniel crossed his arms and smiled, as if he had won. Then the lawyer coughed and said quietly, "If you want a contest, you have 5 business days. After that, the estate is finalized." His words sliced the air like a clock striking midnight. 5 days. That was all I had. Daniel chuckled, the sound sharp and cruel. He tapped the table with his pen, each click echoing like a countdown. My palms grew damp. I forced myself to look at the will again. Something was off. Page numbers 1, 2, 4. My breath caught. Page 3 was missing. Why would a page vanish in a document this important? Daniel noticed my hesitation. "Stop staring. You're finished," he muttered, brushing invisible dust from his sleeve. That gesture was pure contempt, a dismissal of my entire life. The smell of leather chairs mixed with the lawyer's cologne. I clenched the edge of the desk. Should I speak up now, or wait and risk losing everything? My silence felt like chains. The missing page gnawed at me. Maybe my wife had left something. Maybe my name was there. But what if asking out loud made them hide it forever? Daniel leaned closer, his voice low but venomous. 5 days, old man. Don't waste them." He tapped the watch on his wrist, the ticking suddenly louder than my own heartbeat. A strange detail caught my eye. The lawyer's hands trembled slightly as he shuffled the papers. Was he nervous because of me, or because of something he knew? My chest burned with anger, but I swallowed it. Losing control would only feed Daniel's triumph. My wife's memory deserved better than me shouting like a beggar. The folder stayed open on the table. A corner of the paper was bent, as if someone had pulled at it recently. I wanted to reach out, straighten it, search for clues, but Daniel slammed the folder shut with a loud snap. "Enough!" he barked. His arrogance filled the room. I felt smaller, humiliated, as if I had no right to exist. I considered calling another lawyer immediately, yet fear held me back. What if contesting cost more than I could ever afford? The decision weighed like iron on my chest. The silence grew heavy. The clock on the wall ticked louder, each second warning me that time was slipping away. My throat tightened until breathing felt painful. Memories of my wife's last days rushed in, her hand cold in mine, her lips whispering something I couldn't fully hear. Did she try to warn me about this? I closed my eyes for a moment. I wanted to believe there was still dignity for me, still justice somewhere in those pages. But hope felt thin, fragile. Daniel stood, stretching like a king. "See you in the garage," he sneered. His footsteps echoed on the marble floor, each one mocking me. The lawyer avoided eye contact, sliding the folder back into his drawer. That motion, too quick, left me restless. What was he hiding from me? I gripped my cane tighter. The wood felt rough beneath my palm, grounding me. My pride told me to leave with my head high. My fear begged me to stay and ask more. I forced myself to stand. My legs trembled under my weight. Shame prickled my skin. How could my own blood humiliate me in front of strangers? As I reached the door, Daniel's words returned, sharp as knives. 5 days. His voice chased me into the hall, clinging to me like smoke. Injustice carved itself into my bones. My wife's will, my life's work, erased with a stroke of a pen, my name missing, as if I never existed. I paused at the exit, my hand on the cold brass handle. My reflection stared back at me from the glass door. Tired eyes, gray hair, a man stripped of worth. Subscribe. In this family, no one gets away clean, and today I'll prove it. But just before I stepped outside, I heard something faint. The lawyer whispering my name, almost too soft to catch. What secret was buried in those missing pages? And why did his eyes avoid mine when he spoke? The lawyer's whisper still echoed in my ears when I reached the curb. His voice had cracked slightly like a man burdened with something unsaid. I should have turned back, but fear kept me moving forward. The night air smelled of rain on asphalt. The city lights blurred as my eyes filled with tears. At home, I spread the papers across the kitchen table. My fingers traced the numbers at the bottom of each page. 1, 2, and 4. The absence of page 3 stared at me like an open wound. My chest tightened, as if that gap erased me from existence. Daniel's words returned with venom. "You belong in the garage." He had meant every syllable. The humiliation clung to me, stronger than the odor of stale coffee rising from my mug. I wanted to scream, but my voice caught in my throat. My own son had buried me alive in front of strangers. The will was more than ink. It was supposed to be proof of my wife's love, her trust in me after decades together. Now, it was a knife turned inward. I brushed my hand across the paper. It felt too smooth, too clean, as if hiding the dirt beneath. I picked up my phone, hesitated, and set it down again. Should I call another lawyer tonight or wait until morning? Each option carried a cost. Time was my enemy now. 5 days. And the first had already slipped away. The refrigerator hummed in the silence, a strange sound, faint but sharp, like paper tearing. My head snapped toward the table. The corner of the second page had curled upward, showing a faint crease. Had someone folded it in haste? I leaned closer, my breath fogging the surface of the table. The smell of dust rose faintly from the document. Why would a page be missing? Was it removed deliberately, or had it simply been lost in carelessness? My gut told me it was no accident. The memory of my wife's handwriting came back to me. She always signed her name slowly, with a small flourish at the end. I looked for it here. Nothing. Her signature was gone from this section. My pulse quickened. I heard footsteps overhead. Daniel was upstairs in his room, his heavy boots dragging across the floorboards. Each step was a reminder of his triumph. He was the heir now, the master of this house, while I was left counting pages. A wave of rage rose in me. How could my own blood treat me like this? My hands shook, rattling the glass of water beside me. Yet I forced myself to sit still. Losing control now would cost me everything. I pressed my forehead against my palms. My wife had trusted me. I could almost hear her whisper again, "Don't let him take it all." But the memory slipped away before I could hold it. My eyes burned with frustration. The kitchen clock ticked louder, each second devouring what little time remained. I picked up the phone again. This time I dialed. The lawyer's office machine answered, "Closed until morning." My heart sank. Another night, lost. Daniel appeared at the door frame, leaning casually. "Still awake? Counting what's not yours?" His grin widened. I clenched my jaw. His presence filled the room like smoke. My silence gave him power, and I hated myself for it. He reached across the table, tapped the will with 2 fingers. "Don't strain your eyes, old man. Nothing's missing. Nothing for you." His hand left a faint smear on the paper. The gesture burned more than his words. I wanted to grab the page, wave it in his face, shout about the missing number, but I froze. Revealing my suspicion now might give him time to cover it up. My decision postponed itself again. Fear disguised as patience. Daniel left, his laughter trailing up the stairs. The sound scraped at my ears long after he was gone. I stared at the bent corner of page 2, wondering who else might have touched it. I picked up the paper once more, holding it under the lamp. A faint indentation caught the light, as if something had been written on the missing page before it vanished. My fingers tingled. Could I recover it somehow? Hope flickered briefly. Perhaps there was a way. A pencil rubbing maybe, or a copy hidden in the lawyer's files. But hope quickly turned to anger. Why should I dig for scraps of truth in my own house? I pushed the chair back and stood. My knees cracked loudly in the quiet kitchen. The weight of age pressed harder tonight, heavier than any enemy. Daniel had stripped me of more than property. He had stripped me of dignity. The smell of burnt coffee lingered. I dumped the cup in the sink, watching the dark liquid swirl away. My life, circling the drain, vanishing. I gripped the counter until my knuckles ached. A faint breeze slipped through the cracked window. The papers fluttered slightly. For a moment, I thought I heard a whisper, my wife's voice in the rustling pages. "Find the truth," it seemed to say. My chest ached. I gathered the will, slid it back into the envelope, but the missing page haunted me more than the words I had read. That blank space was louder than Daniel's laughter, sharper than the lawyer's silence. I turned off the kitchen light, but couldn't bring myself to leave the table. The envelope stayed under my hand, pulsing with secrets. Sleep would not come tonight. As I sat in the dark, a sudden knock rattled the side wall of the garage. 3 times, sharp and deliberate. My breath caught. Who could it be at this hour? The knocks on the garage wall echoed like a warning. 3 sharp raps, then silence. My hand froze on the envelope, my pulse racing. The night outside was too still for visitors. I leaned on my cane and shuffled toward the back door, each step heavier than the last. The handle was cold, the metal biting into my palm. I hesitated, listening. Nothing but the hum of the refrigerator and the faint creak of Daniel's footsteps overhead. Was someone still waiting, or had I imagined it? My heart argued both sides. I opened the door slowly. The hinges groaned, the sound scratching the night. The air smelled of damp earth and mildew drifting from the garage. No one stood there, just shadows stretching across the cracked driveway. My chest tightened. Then I noticed it, an envelope wedged between 2 loose bricks at the base of the garage wall. Yellowed paper, edges curled by moisture. My fingers trembled as I bent to pick it up. A faint scent of tobacco clung to it, sharp and sour. Inside, 1 page, written in shaky blue ink. If you wish to contest, you must act within 5 business days. My wife's name wasn't on it. The handwriting belonged to the lawyer, yet it wasn't the copy he had given me earlier. Why hide this here? I sat on the cold steps, staring at the page. The weight of the deadline pressed down again. The second day was already slipping away. If I hesitated, Daniel would win everything. The thought sickened me. The door behind me opened suddenly. Daniel's voice cut the night. Talking to ghosts, old man? He leaned against the frame, his shadow swallowing mine. He had seen me with the envelope. His eyes narrowed. Where did you get that? He demanded. His tone was sharper now, less mocking. My lips stayed sealed. If I spoke, he would snatch it from my hand. Silence was my only shield. Daniel stepped closer, his boots crunching gravel. He smelled faintly of whiskey, bitter and heavy. His presence was a tangible threat, towering over me. I clenched the envelope tighter, knuckles white, cane pressing into the ground like a stake. Finally, he smirked. Keep your trash, it won't save you. He turned and slammed the door. The sound reverberated through my bones, but his words, trash, stung more than the slam. I slipped the envelope inside my coat, a secret weapon, a fragile hope. Yet fear gnawed at me. If Daniel already suspected, what else had he hidden? What price would I pay for holding this paper? The night grew colder. My joints ached, knees stiff. The deadline ticked louder in my mind. 5 days. 4 now. Maybe less if Daniel found a way to accelerate it. Time was bleeding away. Inside the house smelled of stale smoke from Daniel's cigars. I hated that smell, clinging to curtains, seeping into wood. My wife never allowed smoking indoors. Her absence was marked by its presence. Another insult layered over grief. I laid the second envelope beside the will on the kitchen table. 2 different sources, 2 different hands. One truth was missing. Which page had been torn away, and why? The unanswered question kept my head spinning. I considered calling the lawyer again, demanding clarity. But what if he was already part of this? His trembling hands, his averted eyes, they weren't signs of innocence. Perhaps he feared exposure. Perhaps he was Daniel's ally. My mind replayed the lawyer's cough, his hesitation before sliding the folder across the desk. Was he warning me in his own quiet way, or simply covering his tracks? The doubt was poison, seeping deeper. I pressed both envelopes flat under my palm, paper thin, yet heavy as stone. My decision to act could not wait much longer, but exhaustion pulled at me. My body was older than my will. Rest would steal precious hours. The clock struck midnight. Its chime rang hollow through the empty kitchen, each gong a nail sealing my fate. I whispered to myself, 4 days left. My voice cracked, breaking the silence I had tried to hold. Memories flooded in. My wife's smile, her soft hands on my shoulders, when I doubted myself. Her last breath had carried words I never fully caught. Was this missing page her final message to me? The thought both comforted and tormented me. I pushed back from the table, cane clattering to the floor. The sound rang out like a gunshot. I froze, listening. Daniel's door upstairs creaked. For a moment, I thought he would come down. But no, just silence again. I picked up the cane, gripping it tighter this time. Its wood was worn smooth by years of my touch, steadying me when everything else failed. Tonight, it felt less like support and more like a weapon I might need. I slid both envelopes into a drawer beneath the cutlery. A poor hiding place, but better than leaving them exposed. The clink of spoons and forks muffled the paper, a fragile barrier against Daniel's greed. The air in the kitchen grew heavy, pressing against my lungs. I moved to the window, cracked it open. Cold night air rushed in, carrying the faint rustle of leaves. For a second, I thought I heard a whisper again, my wife's voice, urging me on. I pressed my forehead against the glass, breath fogging it. My reflection looked back, lined face, weary eyes, a man cornered by his own son. My pride battled my despair. I would not let him erase me. Not yet. Suddenly, headlights swept across the driveway. A car slowed in front of the house, then stopped. The engine idled. My breath caught. At this hour, no one came here without reason. The driver's door opened, but the figure stayed in shadow. A voice called out softly, "Mr. Harris, we need to talk about the missing page." The voice outside froze me where I stood, low, measured, almost cautious. My cane trembled in my grip. The headlights cut a pale path across the driveway, slicing through the night silence. My pulse thudded in my ears, louder than the idling engine. I didn't move. Could it be a trap? Daniel had allies, I was sure of it. Or maybe someone tired of watching the game unfold. I pressed my hand against the cold glass, the fog from my breath clouding the view. A silhouette shifted near the car. Before I could react, the front door upstairs creaked. Daniel. His footsteps thundered against the wooden floorboards, deliberate and heavy. He was coming down. My throat tightened, fear clawing upward. The visitor outside, Daniel inside, both converging on me. I stepped back quickly, sliding the drawer shut over the envelopes. The clang of utensils muffled the sound, but not enough to calm my nerves. I grabbed the cane, moved toward the hallway. Every step felt like walking on broken glass. Daniel reached the bottom before me. His eyes narrowed, a cruel glint in them. "Who are you talking to?" he demanded. His voice carried the weight of suspicion. He smelled of whiskey again, sharp and bitter. I swallowed hard. "No one," I lied, my voice barely above a whisper. But the sound of the car outside betrayed me. The engine roared softly, refusing to disappear. Daniel's gaze flicked toward the window. He smirked. "You'll open that door when I say so," he sneered. From his pocket, he pulled a small object and tossed it toward me. A key. It hit the floor with a metallic clang, spinning in circles until it stilled at my feet. "That's your kingdom now," Daniel spat. "The garage. Stay there, old man." He turned away, laughing under his breath, the sound scraping against my skin like knives. The humiliation cut deeper than any wound. I bent down slowly, knees aching, to pick up the key. It was rusty, rough, and left a stain of orange dust on my fingers. A sharp smell of metal clung to my skin, my so-called inheritance reduced to this. Daniel stomped upstairs again, door slamming behind him. The house shook. Silence settled once more, except for the faint hum of the car engine still waiting outside. I stood with the key clenched in my hand, breath ragged. What should I do? Confront the stranger, or retreat into the garage like Daniel wanted, caged and humiliated? My decision hovered, unmade, weighing on me like stone. The clock ticked louder. Every second mattered. The cold air bit through the window crack. I pushed the door open and stepped into the night. Gravel crunched under my shoes. The car remained at the curb, lights dimming now, engine softening to a murmur. I reached the garage, pressed the key into the lock. It resisted at first, stiff from rust, then gave with a groan. The door creaked open, releasing a stale wave of mildew and old paint. The smell gagged me, thick and rotten. Inside, shadows draped over forgotten boxes. Cobwebs hung like curtains. Dust swirled in the beam of my flashlight. I coughed, the sound bouncing off the concrete walls. This was no kingdom. It was a tomb. I stepped further in, cane tapping against the cracked floor. The air was damp, heavy, clinging to my clothes. My wife's old gardening tools leaned crooked against the wall, rust biting into their edges. Each item whispered of better days. Suddenly, 3 knocks sounded again, this time on the garage wall itself. Sharp, hollow, closer. My grip tightened on the cane. The sound reverberated through my bones. Someone was there, inches away, separated by brick. I froze, my breath shallow. Should I answer? Should I knock back? My heart pounded, indecision tearing me apart. Every instinct screamed danger, but curiosity gnawed louder. Who knew about this missing page? I raised the flashlight toward the wall. A faint shadow shifted outside the narrow window, then silence. Whoever it was, they wanted me to know they were there. My skin crawled with unease. I whispered into the darkness, "What do you want?" My voice cracked, fragile. No answer came, only the sound of a car door closing. Then the engine revved, fading into the distance. Alone again, I turned in a slow circle. The garage swallowed me, every corner filled with ghosts of the past. My wife's old bicycle, still with its worn leather seat, a broken lamp, a box of faded photographs, proof of a life now buried. I lowered myself onto an overturned crate. My knees throbbed. The rusty key still rested in my palm, biting into my skin. Daniel's gift, his insult, my so-called place in this family. The cold seeped through my coat. I rubbed my hands together, dust rising from my palms. I tried to push away the ache of humiliation, but it lodged in my chest like a stone. How far had I fallen to be ordered into a garage like a dog? The silence broke, suddenly. A single knock, this time from inside the garage wall. My head snapped toward the sound. Impossible. My pulse leapt, fear racing through my veins. I rose slowly, cane trembling, flashlight beam quivering across the wall. The knock came again, louder this time. Someone or something was already in here with me. The second knock inside the garage froze my breath. I stood motionless, the beam of my flashlight quivering. Dust floated like tiny ghosts in the air, then silence. My ears strained, desperate for any hint of movement. My cane felt more like a weapon than support. I took a cautious step toward the wall. The concrete was cold beneath my fingertips, rough with years of neglect. I pressed my ear against it. For a moment, nothing. Then a faint sound, almost a whisper, slipped through the cracks. "Mr. Harris." The voice was low, almost apologetic. Not Daniel, not the lawyer. Someone else. I stepped back sharply, my heart thudding against my ribs. My throat tightened as fear twisted into a single question. Who knew my name here? A shadow appeared outside the narrow window, blurred by dirt and cobwebs. The figure raised a hand slowly, palm open, like a sign of peace. My pulse raced, suspicion, battling hope. I forced my voice out, weak but steady. "Show yourself." The garage side door creaked. A man stood there. No, not a man. My neighbor, Harold. His gray hair was matted by the night air, his jacket buttoned wrong. He clutched a folded letter in his hand. His face was solemn, eyes fixed on me. "I should have given you this earlier," Harold whispered. His voice carried shame. He extended the letter, trembling. The envelope looked old, edges yellowed. My stomach lurched. My wife's handwriting sprawled across it, shaky but familiar. I stared at it, unable to move. The smell of tobacco still clung faintly to the paper, the same scent she always carried after sitting on the porch with her pipe. My hand shook as I reached for it. Harold pulled back slightly. "She told me," he muttered, eyes darting toward the house. "Only after she was gone, she said Daniel mustn't see it." His words hit me like a stone. My chest ached with the weight of new truth. My wife had trusted him more than her own son. "Why now?" I asked, my voice cracking. Harold's gaze fell to the floor. "I was afraid. He watches everything, but after tonight, I couldn't keep it anymore." His words dripped with guilt. The letter trembled between us. I took it at last. The paper felt brittle, fragile, yet heavy as stone. My fingers brushed over her writing, each loop of ink a reminder of her presence. My throat tightened, tears blurring the letters. "Open it," Harold urged softly, but I hesitated. If Daniel caught me with it, he would tear it apart. My decision wavered like a candle in wind. Hope and fear clashed violently inside me. A sudden thump echoed above. Daniel moving again. Heavy boots pacing, searching. My chest burned. If he came down now, he'd see everything. Harold's eyes widened, and he backed toward the door. "Hide it," he whispered urgently. "Don't trust anyone, not even the lawyer." Then he slipped into the night, vanishing as quickly as he had come. The side door creaked shut, leaving only the smell of damp earth. I stood frozen, letter clutched against my chest. My wife's voice seemed to hum from the envelope. I wanted to tear it open immediately. Yet dread held me back. Was I ready for what she had left unsaid? I stuffed the letter into my coat pocket just as the upstairs door slammed. Daniel's boots pounded down the stairs. I snapped off the flashlight, standing in darkness, breath shallow. The letter's edges dug into my chest like a blade. He reached the bottom, the floorboards creaking. "Still poking around in your dungeon?" he sneered. His silhouette filled the doorway, broad and arrogant. I stayed silent, forcing my breathing to slow. The smell of whiskey hit me again. Daniel stepped inside, his boots scraping against the concrete, his eyes darted across the garage. "Talking to someone?" His voice sharpened, searching for weakness. I gripped my cane tighter, praying he couldn't hear my heartbeat. "No one," I muttered. My words felt brittle, fragile. Daniel smirked. He tapped a broken box with his foot, scattering dust. "Good. No one wants you anyway." The cruelty in his tone was a knife twisted deeper. He turned and left, door slamming behind him. Silence rushed back in, but not peace. I collapsed onto the crate again, letter burning in my pocket. The temptation to open it screamed inside me, but so did the fear of Daniel discovering me. I pulled the envelope out slowly, fingers brushing the seal. My wife's handwriting stared back, "To be opened only when I'm gone." The words shimmered in the dim light, commanding me, daring me. My hand trembled, thumb sliding under the flap, but a creak from upstairs froze me mid-motion. The sound of Daniel's door opening again. My heart sank. Timing was cruel, decision postponed once more. I shoved the letter back into my coat and leaned against the wall, breathing hard. The smell of mildew pressed close, choking me. My wife's voice haunted my ears. "Don't let him take it all." For a moment, I closed my eyes. I could almost feel her hand on mine guiding me. I whispered to the darkness, "I'll read it tomorrow." The promise tasted bitter, unfinished. A floorboard groaned above, followed by Daniel's laughter, short, sharp, hollow. It slithered through the walls, mocking me, daring me to fail. My grip on the cane tightened until my knuckles burned. The letter waited. My wife's last words locked in ink. But tonight, silence was my only shield. Tomorrow, I told myself, tomorrow I would break the seal. Yet, as the house settled into uneasy quiet, the envelope shifted in my pocket, almost as if it breathed, almost as if it was alive with secrets desperate to escape. Morning light crept through the blinds, slicing the room into harsh stripes. I hadn't slept. The envelope had never left my hand. Its paper edges were frayed now, soft from my restless grip. My wife's name written across it seemed to glow in the pale light. I laid it flat on the table, fingers trembling. The air smelled of stale coffee and dust, clinging heavy to the kitchen. My cane leaned against the chair, close but forgotten. I needed both hands free for this moment, for her words. With slow care, I broke the seal. The sound was sharp, tearing into the silence. My chest tightened, breath shallow. Inside was a single folded sheet, ink smudged at the corners. I pulled it free, holding it like a relic. Her handwriting leapt at me, shaky but certain. "If you're reading this, then Mark." My throat closed. My name. The intimacy of it ripped through me, raw and tender. But the sentence stopped there, cut cleanly, the paper torn. The bottom half was missing. I stared at the ragged edge where it had been ripped away. My pulse hammered. Who had done this, and why? The betrayal burned hotter than Daniel's words. Even death could not keep her safe from his hands. I searched the envelope again, desperate. My fingers brushed the inner lining. Nothing. Empty. My chest caved as rage boiled beneath my ribs. Had Daniel destroyed it to erase her voice as he erased mine? The clock ticked louder, hammering time into my skull. My wife had trusted this letter to Harold, not to her son. She had known something. She had feared him. The realization chilled me. I wasn't just fighting for money, I was fighting for her truth. I stood too quickly, chair scraping across the floor with a screech. My knees buckled, pain stabbing up my legs. I gripped the table, forcing myself steady. The letter trembled in my hand, half a message, half a lifeline. A sound outside drew my attention, the rhythmic crunch of footsteps on gravel. I limped to the window, pulling back the curtain. The mailman, nothing more. Yet even that ordinary sight filled me with dread. Who else could be watching? I returned to the table, slamming the letter flat with my palm. The ink smeared faintly against my skin. I whispered into the air, "What were you trying to tell me?" My own voice shook, hollow. The kitchen light flickered once, buzzing. Daniel had been fiddling with the circuits again, pretending it was maintenance, control disguised as help. My hand curled into a fist. Every corner of this house carried his fingerprints now. I reached for the envelope again. Something felt odd. The flap was thicker, heavier. My fingers traced along the edge until they snagged on rough tape. My heart leapt. Had something been hidden here all along? I dug at the seam with shaking nails. The tape peeled back slowly, sticky and stubborn. Then, there it was. A second piece of paper, folded tight, pressed against the inside. My hand shook as I pulled it free. The scrap was smaller, unevenly cut. Her writing again, fainter this time. The words blurred with age, but still legible. The account. Only he knows the code. My vision swam. An account? Code? My wife had hidden more than love. I sat hard, the chair groaning under my weight. An account meant money. A secret. Something she hadn't trusted Daniel with. The thought was both hope and danger. My chest heaved as the kitchen seemed to close in around me. The smell of rust drifted faintly from my coat pocket. The garage key, still stained from last night. My so-called inheritance. Now I understood. Daniel had tried to bury me in dust while hiding the gold elsewhere. The door upstairs opened with a groan. Daniel's boots pounded the floor again. My heart raced. If he came down now and saw the second scrap, it would vanish, just like the missing page. I shoved it into my pocket, heart hammering. He appeared at the top of the stairs, hair disheveled, eyes narrowed. "You're up early," he muttered. His tone was casual, but his stare drilled into me. My palms slicked with sweat. I forced a nod. He lingered a moment, then smirked. "Careful with your reading, old man. Too much excitement might kill you." He vanished again, door slamming. The words dripped with mockery, but also warning. Did he know? The house grew still once more. I pulled out the second scrap, holding it under the lamp. The ink shimmered faintly, revealing grooves from a pen pressed too hard. My wife's hand had written these words in haste, in fear. Only he knows the code. Who was he? The lawyer? Another witness? Or Daniel himself? My head spun with possibilities, each darker than the last. The mystery deepened, heavier than I could carry alone. I pressed the scraps of paper together, edges misaligned. They were pieces of a puzzle, missing its heart. I needed the rest. Without it, truth was only shadow. My wife's voice half silenced, dangling like a thread above fire. The fridge rattled, a low hum breaking the silence. My eyes burned from lack of sleep, yet I couldn't close them. Rest was impossible. The deadline pressed in, devouring hours I couldn't spare. I folded the scraps carefully, slid them into a fresh envelope, and tucked it into my coat pocket. My cane rested against the chair again. I leaned on it, rising with slow resolve. I would not let Daniel bury me in silence, but as I turned toward the door, the faint sound of tearing reached my ears. Not from me, from the hallway. The unmistakable rip of paper being destroyed. The tearing sound froze my breath. I staggered into the hallway, cane tapping hard against the floorboards. Nothing, just silence, thick as fog. But I knew what I had heard. Someone was destroying something, and I was already too late. The smell of burnt toast lingered faintly from the kitchen, though I hadn't cooked. My throat tightened. Daniel! He had been awake longer than he admitted. My mind raced. What had he ripped? Another page? Another letter? I gripped the railing as I climbed the stairs, each step stabbing my knees. The house groaned with me, wood creaking like old bones. At the landing, his door was shut. From inside, faint rustles, then silence. He knew I was there. "Daniel," I said, forcing calm. No answer. I knocked once. My cane pressed into the carpet for balance. Still no reply. Only the hum of his computer faintly bleeding through the door. My chest ached from the strain of waiting. I turned away, back down the stairs. Confrontation would destroy me now. I needed proof, not anger. In the kitchen, I pulled out the second scrap of my wife's letter again. The account. Only he knows the code. The words pulsed like a heartbeat. Which account? My fingers traced the faint grooves in the paper. A thought struck me. Her handwriting had always pressed hard. If I shaded over it, maybe more words would reveal themselves. My hand shook as I grabbed a pencil. I laid the scrap flat, rubbed gently across its surface. Shadows of letters rose slowly, faint but real. My breath caught as the words formed. Bank of Riverdale, joint number 45117, balance. And then the graphite smudged into nothing, cut off. My chest heaved. A bank account. My wife had hidden it from Daniel, maybe even from the lawyer. The secret she carried to her grave now whispered back through torn paper. My palms sweated, smearing the pencil lines. I clutched the scrap tighter. Hope sparked, fierce and fragile. If I found this account, I could prove Daniel's lies, maybe even reclaim what was mine. But dread followed fast. He would do anything to stop me, anything. My stomach twisted. I dialed the bank number scrawled faintly at the bottom. A robotic voice answered. "For balance inquiries, please enter your client code." My fingers hovered, useless. No code. My wife had entrusted it to someone. But who? I hung up quickly, fearing Daniel might hear the automated voice. My ears strained. Silence upstairs. He hadn't moved, or he was waiting, always watching. The thought gnawed at me until my hand shook worse. The kitchen clock chimed, each strike hit like a hammer. 3 o'clock, hours slipping into the void, the deadline looming closer, 4 days now, or less if Daniel had tampered further. My chest clenched tight. I shoved the scrap back into my coat, its corners biting into my ribs. The cane clattered as I adjusted, the sound too loud in the still house. I winced. Even the smallest noises betrayed me here. The refrigerator hummed again, then clicked off suddenly. The silence rang unnatural. I glanced at the light switch. Dead. The power cut. My heart jumped. Daniel was playing games, plunging me into darkness. I lit the old flashlight. Its beam wavered weak and narrow. Dust motes danced in the cone of light. The smell of mildew from the garage drifted faintly under the door. Every sense screamed danger. I whispered to myself, "Stay calm. She left you away." But my voice cracked, frail and unconvincing. The shadows swallowed my words whole. My cane knocked against the tiles as I paced. Suddenly, the phone rang, sharp, shrill, slicing the night. I nearly dropped the flashlight. The sound echoed through the empty rooms like a scream. I picked it up with trembling hands. "Hello?" A pause. Then the lawyer's voice, thin and strained. "Mr. Harris, if you attempt the account without the code, it will lock permanently. No second chances." His warning bled static, almost drowned. My knees weakened. "Who has the code?" I demanded, silence stretched. Then softly, "Only she told one other. And he's closer than you think." The line went dead. My hand shook violently, phone clattering back into its cradle. Closer than I think. My eyes drifted upward to the ceiling where Daniel's room loomed. Could it be him? My wife's final gamble? Trusting the son who betrayed us both? The thought seared through me, unbearable. I lowered myself onto the chair, body aching. The scraps of letter weighed heavy in my pocket. The truth was within reach, but guarded by shadows, by blood. My chest burned with helpless fury. I pressed the flashlight against my palm until it hurt. Pain grounded me, anchored me. I would not let Daniel erase her voice, erase me. My wife had left a trail, however faint. I had to follow. The floor above creaked. Slow, deliberate steps. Daniel, each one heavier, closer, until dust rained softly from the ceiling. I gripped the cane, sweat slicking my hands. Then his voice, muffled but clear, drifted down the stairs. "You won't find what you're looking for, old man. I already have it." Daniel's words dripped through the ceiling like poison. I already have it. My stomach clenched so hard I nearly dropped the cane. Sweat beaded on my forehead, cold as ice. The silence that followed was worse than his voice. It left me to drown in doubt. I shuffled back to the kitchen, flashlight beam bouncing off cabinets. My hand brushed the folded scraps in my pocket, her handwriting pressing against me like a wound that wouldn't close. Could he truly have the code? Or was it another cruel game? The clock ticked loudly, seconds stabbing into the dark. I whispered, 4 days left, though my throat was dry. Time was shrinking fast, pulling me toward ruin. I could feel Daniel upstairs, waiting, watching, savoring the countdown. I needed proof, something more than scraps of paper and a missing page. My wife had trusted the lawyer with the will. Perhaps he had left something unsaid. Perhaps fear had tied his tongue. My decision crystallized. I would return to his office. Morning light dragged itself over the horizon. I dressed slowly, bones aching, and slipped the scraps into my coat. The rusty garage key rattled in the pocket beside them. Its metallic smell clung stubbornly to my hand. A cruel reminder of Daniel's mockery. The walk to the lawyer's office drained me. Every step tapped out with a cane felt longer, heavier. The city buzzed around me, strangers rushing with purpose. My own purpose clung to me like lead, invisible to all but crushing nonetheless. Inside the office, the air reeked of polished wood and paper. The lawyer looked up, startled, his glasses slipping down his nose. "Mr. Harris, I wasn't expecting you." His voice trembled, thin as glass about to crack. I leaned on the desk, cane tapping the floor once. "The will is incomplete," I said. My voice came out rough, years heavier than my body. His eyes darted to the drawer, the same drawer where he'd hidden the file days ago. He began, then stopped. His throat bobbed, words stuck. I could almost hear his heart pounding. His silence was louder than confession. My chest burned with anger, but I swallowed it down. I needed him to slip. I pointed the cane toward the drawer. "Open it." For a long moment, he didn't move. Then, with a sigh that sagged his whole frame, he pulled the handle. The metallic scrape filled the office, sharp and damning. He slid a folder across the desk, different from the one before, thicker, edges worn. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside, fresh copies of amendments, signatures scrawled across the bottom lines. My wife's name, then Daniel's, in bold ink. My breath stopped. She was in the hospital then, barely able to hold a pen. I remembered her frail fingers, trembling when she tried to lift a spoon. Yet here was her name, written, strong, steady. Forgery screamed from the page. The lawyer's hands trembled as he rubbed his temples. I didn't want to be involved," he whispered. His voice broke, but he came to me with instructions, said it was her wish. I knew it wasn't right. Rage surged through me, sharp and burning. "You let him erase me." My cane struck the floor with a crack, echoing off the walls. The lawyer winced, guilt written across his lined face. His silence was admission enough. I stared again at the signatures. The ink shimmered faintly under the light, darker than her usual writing. My wife's hand was missing, replaced by my son's greed. Betrayal pressed down until I could barely breathe. The lawyer whispered, "If you present this, it will collapse his claim. But you must act quickly. The court finalizes in 3 days." His eyes darted nervously toward the window, as though Daniel's shadow loomed outside already. 3 days. The words struck like a hammer. Time bled away faster than I could hold it. My chest tightened, lungs struggling to catch air. Every second now mattered more than my comfort, more than my fear. I folded the papers carefully, sliding them into my coat. The smell of ink and dust clung to my fingers. Each page felt heavier than stone, but they carried hope, a weapon against Daniel's lies, a fragile lifeline. The lawyer reached across the desk, his hand shaking. "Be careful. He won't stop. He can't afford to." His warning slipped into my bones, chilling me colder than the morning air outside. I nodded once, slow, deliberate. My cane pressed into the carpet as I rose. Every muscle ached, but resolve carried me upright. I would not let Daniel's forgery bury my wife's truth, not while I still breathed. Outside, the wind cut sharp, carrying the smell of rain. I clutched the folder inside my coat, heart pounding. For the first time, I held more than suspicion. I held proof. The weight steadied me, even as dread gnawed deeper. I turned the corner toward home, but halfway down the street, I stopped. A figure leaned against my gate, arms crossed. Daniel, waiting. His smile spread wide, cruel and certain. He already knew. My cane tapped the pavement, echoing in the sudden silence. The folder pressed heavy against my ribs, his eyes fixed on my coat pocket, sharp and greedy. "You went to him," Daniel said softly, almost amused. "And now you think you've won." His smile widened. My grip on the cane tightened until my knuckles burned. The rain began to fall, thin drops tapping against the folder. I clutched it tighter, desperate to protect the pages. Daniel's eyes gleamed brighter than the storm. Then he whispered, "Let's see if your proof survives the night." Rain soaked through my coat as I faced him at the gate. Daniel's smirk glistened under the gray sky, sharp as broken glass. I clutched the folder tighter against my chest. Each drop of water threatened the ink. The proof, my last hope. My cane shook with my grip. "Step aside," I rasped. My voice was low, brittle, carrying years of exhaustion. For a moment I thought he might lunge, tear the folder from me right there. But Daniel only laughed, turning his back as if I wasn't worth the trouble. His arrogance cut deeper than fists. I made it inside, peeling off the wet coat. The folder was damp but safe. I laid the pages flat on the kitchen table, smoothing the wrinkles with trembling hands. My wife's forged signature stared back at me, cruelly steady. Proof of betrayal, proof of his lies. The lawyer's warning echoed. 3 days left. That number hammered at me. 3 days to fight, 3 days to act. My heart pounded with fear, but beneath it, a flicker of resolve burned brighter. I would take this to court. I would not vanish quietly. By morning, I had arranged the hearing, a private session, no audience but family and law. The thought twisted my stomach. Facing Daniel under oath would strip me bare. But it was my only chance. I couldn't allow her voice to be erased. The courthouse smelled of varnished wood and old paper. My cane tapped hollow against the marble floor as I entered. The air was thick, heavy with the weight of judgment. Daniel arrived behind me, swaggering like he owned the place. My chest burned at the sight. The judge, a stern man with weary eyes, sat high above us. His gaze pierced like steel. "Present your case," he said simply. My hands trembled as I slid the folder forward, pages rustling. The sound echoed too loud in the silent chamber. The lawyer for Daniel sneered, dismissive, but the judge's eyes fixed on the signatures. "Strange," he murmured, tracing the ink. "Too strong for a woman bedridden in a hospital." His words were quiet, but they thundered in my chest. Daniel shifted in his seat, jaw tightening. His arrogance flickered. For the first time, a crack showed. I saw fear in his eyes, however brief. It gave me strength, a surge of fire I hadn't felt in years. I rose, cane pressing into the floor. "She couldn't even hold a spoon," I said, my voice shaking but loud. "Yet here, look, her name flows like a steady hand." Rage lifted me. I pointed to the page. "He forged it. My own son." Gasps rippled through the room. Even the clerk lowered her pen. Daniel slammed his palm on the table, leaning forward. "Lies," he barked. His voice shook, anger dripping from every syllable. "He's twisting her memory to steal what's mine." The judge's brow furrowed. He motioned for silence. His gavel struck once, the sound sharp as a rifle shot. "Sit down," he commanded. Daniel obeyed reluctantly, though fury blazed in his eyes. His mask of confidence was slipping fast. The lawyer, who had wavered before, now spoke, his voice low. "I admit, I doubted. I saw the inconsistencies, but I stayed quiet. I regret it." His confession cracked the air like thunder. My knees weakened, but pride held me upright. I glanced at Daniel. His jaw clenched, fists tight at his sides. Sweat glistened at his temple. He looked smaller now, cornered. For years, he had towered over me with contempt. Now, at last, he was shrinking under truth's weight. The judge shuffled the pages again, expression grave. "Forgery is not a small matter," he said. His words carved through the silence. Daniel swallowed hard, his lips pressed into a thin line. For once, he had no clever remark. My wife's torn letter still burned in my pocket. I pulled it out, laying the scraps beside the forged pages. She tried to warn me, I whispered. Even in her last days, she fought to be heard. My voice cracked, but I forced it steady. This is her voice. The judge studied the fragments carefully. His eyes softened, but only slightly. We will investigate further, he said, but for now, this testimony cannot be ignored. He leaned back, tapping his pen against the desk. Daniel shot me a look of pure venom. His eyes promised retribution outside these walls. I felt the weight of that threat, heavy as stone. My body ached with fear, yet my heart throbbed with something new. Vindication. The room swelled with whispers, family murmurs cutting sharp. Cousins, distant relatives, all drawn here by the scent of inheritance. Their faces twisted with greed and shock. My shame burned, but my fury burned hotter. I gripped the cane, its wood biting into my palm. Every moment here cost me strength, but I held on. The weight of years pressed heavy, yet I would not falter now. This was my stand. This was her justice. The judge's voice cut through the noise. We reconvene tomorrow, 10 o'clock sharp. Final ruling will be delivered. His gavel struck again, sealing fate into a single, looming deadline. Tomorrow. One word, heavy and final. My breath caught. Less than 24 hours now. My heart raced with both terror and hope. Everything rested on one day. Daniel rose slowly, his glare locked on me. He leaned close as he passed, whispering so only I could hear. You won't live to hear that ruling? His breath reeked of smoke and whiskey, foul and cold. I froze, the threat slicing deep. My knees trembled, but I kept my head high. My cane tapped once against the floor, loud as defiance. He would not see me break, not now. As the court emptied, the echo of his words stayed heavy. My wife's letter fragments rustled in my pocket, her voice urging me forward. Tomorrow promised truth or ruin. I stepped into the hallway, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. My reflection glared back at me from the polished glass, old, weary, but unbroken. I whispered to myself, tomorrow at 10, and then, from behind me, came the sharp echo of hurried footsteps, closing in. The footsteps behind me grew louder, sharp against the courthouse marble. I turned slowly, cane steadying me. A clerk rushed past with papers, not a threat. Relief washed over me, then faded. Daniel's whisper still coiled around my throat. You won't live to hear that ruling? Outside, the air was cold, damp with the promise of rain. My coat collar fluttered in the wind as I stepped into the street. Every sound felt amplified, the hiss of tires on wet pavement, the distant horn, my own labored breathing. Time moved slower, pressing me down. All night, I barely slept. I sat at the kitchen table with the fragments of her letter spread before me. The ink shimmered under the lamp, half words, torn phrases, yet her voice still lived. Don't let him take it all. My chest ached each time I traced the lines. When dawn broke, my hand shook as I tied my shoes. Daniel's door slammed upstairs. He was awake. His boots thundered down, each step heavy with anger. He didn't look at me as he left the house, but I caught the flicker in his eyes, rage and fear entwined. The courthouse loomed again, tall and severe. The smell of varnish and paper filled the halls as I entered. My cane tapped rhythmically, a drumbeat announcing my frailty, but also my resolve. My wife's scraps pressed against my chest inside my coat like a shield. Family filled the benches. Faces turned, some sneering, others whispering. Distant relatives, all hungry for scraps of inheritance. Their stares burned into me, but I kept walking. I had survived humiliation. I could survive this. The judge entered, robes flowing. His gavel struck once, silencing the chamber. Final ruling today, he declared, voice heavy with authority. The air thickened instantly. Every breath caught. My heart pounded loud in my ears. The lawyer presented the folder, his hands trembling less now, steadier. The forged signatures lay exposed, naked lies on paper. The judge examined them carefully, brow furrowed. The silence dragged, stretching nerves to breaking. Daniel leaned forward, his jaw clenched tight. Sweat glistened on his temple despite the cool room. His lawyer whispered furiously, but Daniel swatted the words away. His arrogance had cracks now, splitting wide under the weight of truth. I rose, slowly, cane steady. She couldn't hold a pen, I said again, my voice stronger this time. This is not her hand. This is theft, betrayal, and greed, committed by my own son. Each word cut deeper than the last. A murmur rippled through the benches. Some gasped. Others shifted uncomfortably. The weight of family shame spread like smoke. Daniel's face darkened, eyes blazing. He slammed his fist against the table. He's lying. His voice shook the chamber. The judge's gavel cracked down. Silence! His voice was thunder. Daniel sat back, fuming, his chest rising and falling like a storm barely contained. I gripped the cane tighter, refusing to let his fury steal my strength. The judge leaned forward. This court recognizes the signatures as fraudulent. The amendments are void. The original will stand. His voice rang clear, final, echoing through the chamber. My knees nearly buckled. Justice had spoken. Gasps filled the room. Daniel froze, stunned. For once, he had no smirk, no venom, only silence. My chest swelled, not with triumph, but with something heavier. Grief. My wife should have been here to see her truth restored. Daniel rose suddenly, chair screeching. He stormed past me, his shoulders striking mine hard. He didn't look back. His footsteps faded down the corridor, heavy, furious, final. The silence he left was louder than his threats. The judge stood, gavel striking one last time. Case closed. The words landed with the weight of a lifetime. My hand shook as I gathered the folder, now no longer a burden, but proof that I had endured. Outside, the air was crisp, rain swept away by sunlight. I stood on the courthouse steps, cane planted firmly. The city bustled past, indifferent, but I felt lighter than I had in years. My wife's voice echoed in my chest. Don't let him take it all. I hadn't. I pulled the letter fragments from my coat. The torn edges fluttered in the breeze. Half of her words lost forever, yet half remained. Enough to guide me. Enough to remind me that love had lived even in silence. For the first time in weeks, I breathed fully. The ache in my chest loosened. My knees still throbbed, my body still frail, but my spirit had straightened. Dignity returned, scarred but unbroken. The family scattered behind me, muttering. Some sneered, others avoided my eyes. It didn't matter. They hadn't lived my nights of shame, my mornings of fear. They hadn't heard her whisper in the torn paper. This victory was mine alone. I turned my face to the sun, eyes closing briefly. I imagined her hand in mine, soft, warm, guiding. I whispered, "We did it." My voice cracked, but it was enough. She was with me still, in every breath, every step. I descended the steps slowly, cane tapping steady on stone. Each sound rang like a heartbeat, steady, defiant. My reflection in the courthouse glass showed me as I truly was, not erased, not forgotten, but standing. At the bottom I paused, letter fragments pressed to my chest. Justice had come, but family was lost. The ache remained. The question burned. Could anything ever mend what Daniel had broken? I turned toward the street, the world moving fast around me. My voice low, I spoke to the air, to anyone listening. What would you have done in my place?